Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS, the 1993 30th anniversary Doctor Who documentary. Well, actually, it was called 30 Years in the TARDIS, and it was only 50 minutes long. However, they then had a 60-minute extended version for BFI a few weeks later, and called it More 30 Years in the TARDIS, I believe. And then when it came to video, they had the full 90-minute version released, and it was called More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS, and you got that version on the 2013 DVD. Which, by the way, I just have to quickly mention, on the cover, it's rated PG. It's rated PG on the cover, on the spine, on the back, and on the reversible side for the ones who prefer the older covers. However, on the disc, it's a U for some reason, which that is the original age rating from the video. But why is it a PG on the cover and a U on the disc? I mean, someone at the printers, the disc or the cover printers, they obviously did something wrong. And also the discs the green's slightly gone off a little bit. So yeah, and it's only a single disc set, unlike Sharda, where it was in a box set with Sharda, and that was 2 discs. But this is single disc. So where's the PG come from? Is there? I mean, if it's some of the extras on the disc, then why isn't the disc a PG? Doesn't make sense. And Matt Moyer, my friend from the Universals, he brought this up in, I think, a DVD collection video as well, and I completely agree with him. Why? Why did they do this? And apparently it's not just my copy, because again, Matt and a few other pictures I've seen, the disc seems to be this way. It's a U-rated disc, but the covers are PG. So did someone get the covers printing wrong? Did someone just put the wrong cover on the printer? Jesus. Okay, so what's the documentary about? Well, like Dalek Mania, it's a really fun documentary talking about the Doctor Who bits. I also like how they talk about the Dalek films here at a point here. They don't go too much into detail about them because they don't go too much into detail about the Dalek films, but that's okay. Dalek Mania will come out in 1995, so it's only a year or two away from this documentary, so that's okay. Dalek Mania's got the Dalek films get their own documentaries, whilst this one can stay most focused on the TV show, but can briefly pop into that bit for a little bit. And it gets to talk about the Doctors, although for some reason, at the start, they start talking about the first 3 Doctors. Then they seem to skip Tom Baker. They just do him as just different parts throughout the show. They don't really talk about him as a whole like the first 3. And then towards the end, they do the last 3 Doctors, 5, 6, and 7. Last 3 Doctors at the time of the documentary coming out. So it kind of feels a bit weird that they talk about the first 3 Doctors, then they decide to stop, and then towards the end they start to come back to them, except they skip the 4th Doctor and just go to the 80s incarnations. 80s minus the 4th Doctor, because he had a couple of stories in the 80s. See the ranking, see the top 10 80s stories ranking. But yeah, it's a bit strange. And sometimes they, like with the Big Finish documentary that they had on the Light at the End box set, This is Big Finish box set, where that documentary basically talked about the Light at the End for 25 minutes, even though that had its own behind-the-scenes documentary. The making of the Light at the End had its own behind-the-scenes disc. They decided to talk about it for 25 minutes of the This is Big Finish documentary, and then they decided to talk about Elizabeth Klein, a character from Big Finish Audios, and then they decided to talk about I, Davros, and then they just start talking about topics randomly. This documentary kind of does a similar thing, but it's less random. It does kind of focus on stuff relevant to the topic, like the monsters, the companions. There's also these, like with Dalek Mania, you've got these recreated scenes. Fun fact, Michael Wisher, who plays the cinema guy in that documentary, voices the Daleks in this documentary. Still not as good as Nicholas Briggs. And yeah, but these segments also work some places, and we do get this boy who I'm not sure what he's supposed to be doing In some scenes, he's running around with a gun, shooting at monsters, and just, I suppose, role-playing one of the soldiers the Doctor would team up with. In some scenes, he's just he's behind the sofa, pointing his gun at the TV for some reason, like you can shoot the characters on the telly, and then he's just ducking behind the sofa a few times. I mean, you're not going to see anything if you're going to be ducking behind the sofa. I know the term watching from behind the sofa, but you still watch from behind the sofa and not ducking underneath. And even if you cover your eyes like this, you could still just about see. I didn't know what the point of having this kid was. Some of the other bits where it's recreation scenes, like Susan with the Daleks. Well, Susan's walking away from the Daleks. She doesn't seem scared at all. It's like, oh, it's a nice stroll. Yeah, I can get to the TARDIS really well. Not sure what the point of that was. I like the John Pertwee bit with the dinosaurs, because that's a nice cliffhanger. And the dinosaurs are a bit more... they're a bit more... they look a lot better than what they did in the Invasion of the Dinosaurs and the autumn attack on attempted attack on Nicholas Briggs. That's pretty interesting as well. Not Nicholas Briggs, Nicholas Courtney. Sorry, wrong Nicholas. There's also a nice bit with Elizabeth Sladen and her daughter Sadie walking around the house and the Sontarans after them. Although that story feels a bit half-baked, no pun intended. As Sadie disappears and Elizabeth goes to join the boy when they're talking about the companions, and then at the very end it's revealed she's possessed and the Sontaran has got the boy. Why does the Sontaran want these kids? I mean, yeah, these at least the stuff, the recreation, the little short recreation, not recreation scenes, just these little cutaways, short scenes with these characters in the Dalek Mania one. Whilst there wasn't many of those, and it did kind of come in, what's the point? At least those one had story. This one, they're just doing them. They're just doing them just because. It's a bit weird. They are, and the Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred one, just get little bits of Sylvester McCoy walking around this strange area, just cutting in and out from talking scenes about the actual making of the show, until finally they decide to actually focus on the thing. Yeah, I will say this, these bits do kind of split the documentary into 3 bits. Whether this would have been in the original broadcast or the BFI version is uncertain, but I suppose these recreations sort of help break up the story, and they kind of provide nice cliffhangers. Also, there's some Doctor Who-esque adverts, which probably have been released on the DVD since then, have appeared. Certainly the, I think the Lolly one certainly has, and definitely the Prime Computer as adverts have appeared on the Destiny of the Daleks DVD. That's certainly better than the story itself, especially the second one where the Doctor has to ask Romana to marry him. Well, he hasn't already done that after the Christmas tapes with Romana 1. Actually, that kind of brings me to a good joke. That's how Tom Baker proposed to Lana Ward. Okay, yeah, like I said, that was a joke. I don't think that's actually how it happened. Stop it! Whatever that stupid beeping sound is. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, so... apologise for any beeping sound outside you may hear. But, yeah, most of the good stuff is basically just talking about the show, the creation, how they make it. It's just really great. It's really interesting. And at a time where documentaries and DVD extras were not a thing, or not that often at least, this is very unique, especially with the acting scenes. Yeah, it's very interesting and got lots of great documentary stuff. As a documentary, it's perfect. It's just that some of the recreation scenes, as fun as they are and really enjoyable to watch, don't really make a lot of sense. Some of them have a story, some of them just are there. Just, yeah, at least like I said, the Dalek Mania ones, they weren't really that necessary. They weren't really that needed, but at least they had story. I will say this: the direction was really good with them, and they were fun and enjoyable. And I like all the interviews they have with cast and crew members of the show, as well as fans. In fact, one of the fans, I believe, she found William Hartnell, I think she found John Pertwee sexy, but she also recounts a story where she was a fan of William Hartnell's Doctor, and she got quite upset when she saw him regenerate into Patrick Troughton. She got quite annoyed, but 4 episodes into Patrick Troughton, she'd forgotten about William Hartnell. So that's kind of that's similar to what we have now, where we're not certain of our new Doctor, but a couple of episodes in, we love them, or we like them, and we, or at least forget about the last one. I think this is probably the most true for David Tennant or Matt Smith, their Doctors. As you don't think, oh, they're not going to be as good as the previous person, and then a couple of episodes in, you're like, oh, hang on, this is great, and then maybe by the end of the season, you're thinking maybe they're the best one ever. I think this may have been to a lesser extent also for Capaldi as well, maybe. So yeah, this isn't a new thing. And whilst we're on the subject, I must stress once again that politics in Doctor Who is not a new series only thing. There's plenty in the classic series, and quite a lot of it isn't subtle. So people going, ew, politics are only in series 11, or ew, politics are only in the last couple of series of the new series. No. And I'm gonna keep reminding people about that until people get it screwed into their heads. Okay, so if you're getting upset about me reminding you every other couple of reviews, sorry, but people need it screwed into their heads. Sorry for that last little bit of a rant, but people need it screwed into their heads that politics aren't just in the last couple of new series stories. I have to keep reminding people so that it stays in their heads, otherwise they're going to keep forgetting and make the same stupid complaints. Which, yeah, you can see why I'm having to do this. Anyway, More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS is a fantastic documentary. The recreation and the whole, recreation bits, I believe. I'll just say recreation bits, it's just easier for me. The acting bits, some of them don't make a lot of sense, but quite a lot of them are really fun and enjoyable. And Nicholas Courtney has a fantastic voiceover. He's brilliant in the voiceovers. And it's great to see everyone together just talking about it. Well, okay, Tom Baker's not really there. We've got some archive footage with him, interviews with him, but still really great to see John Pertwee, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy. Okay, maybe not so much Peter Davison. I think he's not really there that much either. But John Pertwee, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy definitely are there, and so are many other people. Carol Ann Ford, Verity Lambert, Barry Letts, and Terence Dix. They even get a moment together. They also talk about the junkie of episodes, and that's pretty interesting as well. As of when this documentary was made, 110 episodes were not in the archive. Of course, over the next decade, they would get 2 more episodes in. One in 1999, The Crusade Part 1, maybe even 2 that year, actually. And one in 2004, Daleks Master Plan Part 2. Then in 2011, they got another 2, Galaxy 4 Part 3, and Underwater Menace Part 2. Narrowed it down to 106 episodes, so it was 108 just before that. So maybe there was 111 missing here. It depends on whether there was 2 episodes found at Crusade North, or if one of them had already been was already surviving. I think that one may have already been surviving, to be honest. And then, of course, in 2013, it was announced that the entirety of Enemy of the World was back in the archives, with the 5 missing episodes. They were returned, and almost all of the Web of Fear, only 1 episode was still missing. And to be honest, they even found that, but someone else took it for some reason. So there's now only 97 episodes still missing, including Web of Fear Part 3. As well as also the 10th Planet Part 4, which is the most sought after missing episodes. And there was even this whole, I think I saw a documentary on YouTube about it and about missing episodes, and they were talking about a bit where the BBC were almost the missing episodes searchers were kind of scammed by some guy who pretended that he had 10th Planet Episode 4, and it was all a scam. Dicks. Anyway, so More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS basically just did the wrap up, and amazing. So I'll be giving this documentary a 9 out of 10. Yeah, it doesn't quite get a 10 out of 10 because I don't think some of the acting bits make a lot of sense, and some of the topics they decide to talk about in the documentary, sometimes they do go from one to another without much of a change. Some of them are related to the topics like companions or monsters, but other points it's a bit strange. Anyway, so that's it from More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS, and that's the last, apart from the radio drama Whatever Happened to Susan, which I've already reviewed. Check that 2-part review /rant out on the Whoniversals coming soon, if it's not already out. link video already posted. I did have to re-upload it with some re-edits to make it more of a newer video, but still remake of an older one. But yeah, you can still check that out. Prepare for an extreme rant for that. And apart from that, and also the fan film Devious's clips, but if that gets completely finished, then I might review that as a whole. After that, well, that's it for the Sylvester McCoy era as a whole. So we're now going to be going to the top 5 Sylvester McCoy 7th Doctor stories. And then after that, we'll be on to the 4th Wilderness Years review and the first review in the 8th Doctor's era. And we take a look at only one of 2 on-screen, excluding the Sharda webcast, appearances of the 8th Doctor as played by Paul McGann in Doctor Who, or Doctor Who, the movie. And I'm looking forward to this one. I mean, it's not going to be a 10 out of 10, but it's still going to be a fun watch for me. Even if it doesn't get a very high score, it's going to be an enjoyable watch. So, next time, Doctor Who, or Doctor Who, the movie. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. And in another scene, he's hiding behind his sofa. He's putting his eyes over his mouth. That's right. And it's not always, and some of it is not subtle. I have to keep screwing into people's heads because otherwise it won't stick into their. Anyway, so More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS is a brilliant documentary and has some really great work. And sorry, I'm starting that a bit again. They also talk about other bits like the junking of episodes, and then after that, the next review, the 4th Wilderness Years review, will be as we take a look at